Chapter 1398. At first, Jing Yunjiao thought that the person who did this was Yi Chu. But now, she was a little confused. If it was really Yi Chu, then the other party must have come prepared. Even the reason why he became Wang Ruxun's savior was calculated. But in her memory, there was no such person as Yi Chu. Not only that, the other party's action of taking Wang Ruxun away seemed simple, but in fact, no one could find any trace of it. A person who has the ability to deceive people is definitely not a simple person. Jing Yunjiao frowned. She was puzzled. After a while, she called her first uncle. When she thought of the fact that the kidnapping and the route were so skillful, she felt that this matter must have something to do with Jiniran, who had been hiding in the dark. But all this time, Jiniran had been carefully watched by her first uncle. If there was really any movement, first uncle should be able to find out immediately. When the phone was connected, first uncle's slightly tired voice came through. Jing Yunjiao went straight to the point and asked, "First uncle, how is Jiniran recently?" "Him? Did you get any news?" Shu Yuantarek rubbed his eyebrows and said, "Recently, the underworld is a little chaotic. Recently, the police received news that Jiniran secretly made a batch of dirty things. If it flows to the market, it will definitely have a big impact. I have put pressure on people to step up the investigation and keep an eye on Jiniran every day, but, Zhao, this time, Jiniran is really waging war on us. Recently, your cousin has been very busy. Because of the deaths in the underworld every 2 or 3 days, it is difficult to find the murderer. It is a little difficult to go into the wolf's den all day long." Shu Yuantarek said. If it was an ordinary murder case, with Shu Hong's ability, it would be easy for him to solve it. But it involved the forces in the dark. There were many obstacles if he wanted to investigate it. In short, everything became a little complicated. "First uncle, can you tell me in detail what the police have received? What exactly did Jiniran make?" Jing Yunjiao thought for a while and asked. "We are not very sure, but the undercover agent said that if this thing flows to the market, it will cause a big impact. It should be an addictive drug, more serious than the drugs on the market. It is definitely a threat to life," Shu Yuantarek said again. Jing Yunjiao furrowed her brows. "Medicine again? And it is addictive and has a life-threatening effect. First uncle, is there any other news about this drug?" Jing Yunjiao asked. "The police found a burnt corpse. It was probably the person who took the medicine. The forensic doctor identified some special ingredients, but it's impossible to analyze the specific proportion of the formula. If you're interested, let Honga take you to see it." "I almost forgot that you're a doctor," Shu Yuanzi said again. Of course, he would not forget such an important thing. However, Jing Yunjiao was treating a living person. She might not have the ability to treat a dead person. Moreover, the burned body was really difficult to accept. Therefore, he did not want his niece to be involved. But now that she asked in such a serious manner, she probably wanted to get to the bottom of it. As long as she was not afraid, it was fine for her to go. Jing Yunjiao immediately agreed. Her intuition told her that Yi Chu and Jiniran should be in cahoots. Chapter 1399. She had taken Li Xiaoyun's pulse before, so she clearly knew the level and specifications of the drug he had been poisoned with. It could be said that there were only a few national healers who could concoct that kind of drug. Furthermore, the method used was exactly the same as Madame Jing's. The poison used by Madame Jing actually had a certain degree of medicinal properties. It existed for treatment. The kind that Li Xiaoyun had been poisoned with was colorless and odorless, but its medicinal properties were extremely strong. It was suitable for treating fire poison injuries. However, the other party had added an aphrodisiac and increased the proportion of hallucinogenic drugs, so the treatment effect was lost and it became another harmful substance. The Madame Jing. Even Elder Jing Rong wouldn't have such a dangerous drug formula. The only person who could have come into contact with it was actually only her. However, she dared to guarantee that she had never spread the formula that could harm others. That's not right. A thought suddenly flashed through Jing Yunjiao's mind. Other than her, Grandpa should also have that kind of ability. After all, the Jing and Shu families were of the same origin, and their methods of using medicine were practically the same. Therefore, if Grandpa Shu were to put some thought into it, there was still a high possibility that he would be able to discover something. However, there was no need for him to do so. As for the last suspicious person, that would be her father. Her father's medical skills were actually taught to him by Grandpa in a more subtle way. Moreover, he had been obsessed with medicine for so many years, so the possibility was very high. However, she didn't think that a gentle and noble man like her father would like to study such unorthodox drugs. Jing Yunjiao thought for more than 10 minutes before a figure appeared in her mind. It was an extremely beautiful woman. Ruan Xiaoxia. She hadn't seen that woman for a long time. Sometimes, she had even completely forgotten about her. However, now that she thought about it carefully, that woman wasn't an ordinary stubborn person. She shouldn't be someone who would give up so easily. Most importantly, she had lived in the Li family for decades. Although the Li family wasn't very proficient in national healers, there were countless ancient books at home. Moreover, her father was obsessed with medicine. When they were young, they had studied medicine together and learned from each other. It could be said that Ruan Xiaoxia's medical skills weren't inferior to her father's. Not only that, but she was also the person whose medical skills were the closest to Madame Jing's other than her father and grandfather. However, when she thought that this person could directly study some of Madame Jing's secret prescriptions, she shuddered. Wait a minute. Jing Yunjiao's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of coldness. Jing family's secret recipe, secret technique. She remembered that a long time ago, there were people who said that the Jing family had left behind a secret book, but no one had been able to find it. Even Li Wenbo had tried his best to find it, but no one knew where her grandmother had hidden it, so his efforts were in vain. Ruan Xiaoxia was also very knowledgeable about the Jing clan. Could it be that she had already found the medical book in advance? That's why she was able to develop the medicine to harm people. Thinking of this, Jing Yunjiao shuddered. She knew better than anyone else what was in the medical skills left behind by the ancestor. She also knew that some things could not be used by people with ill intentions. Otherwise, the consequences would be severe. Otherwise, there would not have been such strict management over the years to prevent the Jing family's secret arts from being exposed. Of course, the contents of that secret technique should be different from the contents of the spirit jade in her space. After all, it was to be passed down from generation to generation. There shouldn't be too many harmful medicines in it. The most important thing was to cure illnesses and save people. Chapter 1400. Jing Yunjiao thought about it back and forth a few times. After she understood the pros and cons of the situation, she didn't stay at home for too long. Wang Ruchun definitely couldn't be found by now, so there was no point in being anxious. Moreover, since this matter was related to Jin Yiran, then going to the police station to take a look at the corpse shouldn't be wrong. Jing Yunjiao informed Xu Hong in advance, but when he saw Xu Hong, he was shocked. Recently, Xu Hong was very busy and rarely stayed at the Xu family. Therefore, they didn't have many opportunities to meet each other. At this time, Xu Hong's handsome face was slightly unkempt. There were serious dark circles under his eyes, his clothes were dry, and his face was covered in stubble. He looked like he had suffered a major blow. "Cousin, how many days have you not slept?" Jing Yunjiao asked as they walked. Xu Hong yawned subconsciously. There have been too many murders recently, and all of them are related to that group of violent people. It's difficult to investigate the cases, and I have to wait day and night. I have only slept for a few hours in the past few days. Cousin, give me some medicine to wake me up, so that I won't be sleepy when I go back to catch the culprit. Jing Yunjiao looked at him sympathetically. In your current situation, the best medicine to wake you up is sleep. Moreover, you can't take medicine indiscriminately. Otherwise, you will overdraw your lifespan. Jing Yunjiao advised. Only this time. After I catch Jin Yiran, the mastermind, I will have a good holiday. At this time, Xu Hong didn't have any foreign habits. Jing Yunjiao looked at him and was a little worried. Is Jin Yiran's actions very frequent? Jing Yunjiao opened the door to the room where the corpse was stored and asked. When Xu Hong heard this, he became more serious and said, it's quite frequent. I even suspect that he's crazy, insisting on going against the government at this time. You don't know this, but he's now fighting with others for territory. Those who offend him are secretly killed. His actions are ruthless and straightforward, and not a single trace of fingerprints or evidence is left behind. In addition, every time he kills someone, he'll send them to a conspicuous place, causing panic among the citizens. In the past month, there has been a case almost every day. If another batch of drugs under his command causes more deaths, I'm afraid your uncle will have to take the blame and resign. Of course, the possibility is not very high, but I suspect that his target is your eldest uncle. It's not important that he resign, but I'm afraid that he will use that drug to deal with the Shu family, Shu Hong said. There was a reason for this. Some of the recent deaths were due to vengeance, and some died because of drug testing. In addition, there were many famous doctors who went missing recently. The spy revealed that they might have gone to research the antidote. Researching an antidote was not good news, because the other party had developed a problem that even famous doctors could not solve. In other words, the other party was afraid that Jing Yunjiao would make a move and fail. It was a pity that they did not have any information about those medicines. Otherwise, they could have let Jing Yunjiao study them in advance. He did not think that Jing Yunjiao would be able to find the antidote from a dead person. Jing Yunjiao listened attentively. After entering, he put on protective clothing and a mask and walked towards the rows of corpses. There were so many corpses that it was a bit shocking. Most of them had been dissected, and even if they were restored to their original state, the stitches could not be covered up. Chapter 1401. Shu Hong usually had more chances to come into contact with these corpses, so his tolerance was relatively good compared to others. However, when he saw the corpse in front of him, his eyelids twitched violently and he tilted his head. The corpse was charred black, and the face could not be seen clearly. However, he could feel that there were other wounds on the body, which should have been caused by some machetes. Jing Yunjiao had seen some corpses before, but she had never seen such a disgusting one. Suddenly, she found it difficult to bear, but when she thought of the drugs hidden in this person's body, she still carefully observed it. The smell on this person's body had almost been burned away, so it was difficult to smell it. However, since he had taken drugs, there must be a lot of residue in the body's organs. The police had already analyzed some data, and combined with her own judgment, she could roughly guess what kind of drug the other party had used. Jing Yunjiao stayed in the room for a long time. Originally, Shu Hong was still accompanying her, but now he was definitely the busiest person in the police station. Not long after, he hurried out to handle the case. After a few hours, Jing Yunjiao compared the data given by the forensic doctor and came to a conclusion. At this time, she was even more certain of her previous thoughts. The person who had drugged Jing Yunjiao was very familiar with Jing Yunjiao's drug habits, and the data directly reminded her of a prescription left by her ancestors called the vital energy pill. It was used to suppress some of the foul qi in the body, and in modern terms, it was used to suppress bacteria. Some patients could use this pill to treat terminal diseases, but the other party changed the drugs inside a few times, causing the body's functions to rapidly decline after taking it. The weakened body provided a better environment for the body's bacteria, causing the entire person to be unable to be treated. Because the body was too weak, almost all kinds of drugs could not be tolerated. However, this medicine was obviously still in the experimental stage. She clearly felt that the other party seemed to want to make the person who took it suffer some pain, so they added some other stimulants, but because the combination was not very reasonable, the effect was not very great. According to Shu Hong, many of the corpses found recently had been drugged. It seemed that the person behind it was still in the midst of research. She had some ways to detoxify these poisons. After looking at a few corpses, she could roughly confirm that the other party only had a few prescriptions that could harm people. Even if she tried to change them, they would still remain the same. She was very familiar with the counteracting laws between the drugs. As long as she could diagnose the poisoned person's pulse immediately, it shouldn't be a problem for her to temporarily save the person's life. However, just in case, she still needed to prepare a few more types of antidote pills to avoid any accidents. Of course, She also rejoiced in her heart. If her medical skills were only inherited from the current Jing clan, then she would definitely be helpless against these things. Perhaps the person behind the scenes would never have thought that her master was the founder of the Jing clan, the ancestor. Her skills were naturally not something that the secret arts of the Jing clan could compare to. After confirming the authenticity of the medicine, Jing Yunjiao had an idea. After returning, Jing Yunjiao immediately entered the space to prepare several antidotes. Time passed very slowly in the space. Jing Yunjiao had been busy for a few days, but only a day had passed since she came out. Li Xiaoyun finally found some clues. After Wang Ruxun was taken away, although she changed several cars, according to her suspicions, Li Xiaoyun specially investigated the movements of Jiniran and the various forces around him. He found that last night, a cruise ship under the name of Jiniran's confidant set sail overnight. It should be in the high seas now, and there seemed to be a woman tied up on the cruise ship. According to the information that Li Xiaoyun caught, it was most likely Wang Ruxun. Chapter 1402. After learning that Wang Ruxun had been sent out to sea, Jing Yunjiao was a little puzzled. With Jiniran's ability, if he wanted to kill someone, he could do it without leaving a trace. There was no need for him to go to the international waters. However, before she could make any guesses, Xu Yuantarek sent her another piece of bad news. When Jing Yunjiao went to observe the corpse yesterday, Xu Hong had already gone out to investigate the case. Because of his identity as a suspect, he had to greet some people in the underworld. Originally, he had brought a lot of people with him. However, last night, there was a sudden conflict with the other party. The scene was a mess. When the police came to control the situation, they couldn't find Xu Hong. Although there were many witnesses at the scene, the police interrogated them for an entire night and none of them saw Xu Hong leave. At that time, Xu Hong's colleagues were surrounded by a group of people. They couldn't even take care of themselves. Therefore, when the news of Xu Hong's disappearance spread, his colleagues insisted that it was those thugs who did it. However, there was no evidence. Similar to Wang Ruxun's disappearance, even the surveillance cameras on the streets couldn't capture a trace of him. Xu Hong's disappearance was a big blow to Jing Yunjiao. She hurriedly returned to the Xu family. The news didn't reach the grandfather's ears. However, Xu Yuantarek and Xu Wencheng had a serious expression on their faces. Shen Tong, who had become the mistress of the Xu family, didn't know about the situation at all. She was still confused and didn't dare to disturb the brothers when they were talking. Yunjiao, your uncle, and the others seem to have encountered something. Their work is too complicated and I don't know much about it. You should help them. Don't let them work too hard. When she saw Jing Yunjiao, Shen Tong didn't forget to say this. Xu Hong was Shen Tong's only son. The mother and son had relied on each other for more than 20 years. If she knew about the situation before she knew it, she would be worried for nothing. I know. Jing Yunjiao nodded. Shen Tong smiled and said, your cousin has been too busy recently. Every time you come back, you don't see him. I'll teach him a lesson next time. At the mention of Xu Hong, Jing Yunjiao's expression became somewhat awkward and serious. She was not good at deceiving or hiding things from her own people, but she had no choice but to do so. At this moment, she lowered her head slightly and did not meet Shen Tong's gaze. She said indifferently, there have been a lot of murders recently. Cousin must be so busy that he forgets to eat and sleep. I'm not an insensible little girl. I don't need him to come back and coax me every time. You, as a younger sister, isn't it natural for her brother to accompany her? Shen Tong smiled. She knew that Jing Yunjiao must have come to look for her husband and brother-in-law, so she didn't say much before letting Jing Yunjiao go to the study room. Inside the study, the air seemed to have solidified. The two brothers seemed to have just quarreled, their faces and necks flushed red. As soon as Jing Yunjiao appeared, the two of them looked slightly better. Jiao, I've already told you most of the things on the phone, but on your way here, we received this. Xu Yuantarek said as he handed over the things in his hand. It was a folder and a letter. Jing Yunjiao opened the folder and looked at it. The first thing that came into view was the information about a building accident that happened about 2 to 3 months ago. The building collapsed, But because it happened in the middle of the night, some of the workers in the building were not around, so there were no casualties. Although it attracted the attention of the public, the people who should have dealt with it had already dealt with it. It actually had nothing to do with first uncle. In addition to the building accident, there were also problems with some factories and bridges, some of which involved lives. Chapter 1403. When these incidents were pieced together, it seemed like an unlucky year. Most importantly, these incidents happened recently, and Jing Yunjiao could vaguely guess the other party's intentions. However, to confirm, Jing Yunjiao still opened the letter. The letter was printed, and Jing Yunjiao read it carefully. The moment she opened the letter, she was furious. The contents of the letter did not mention who the other party was, but there were some vague hints that made them think of Jin Yiran. Jin Yiran's motive was very simple. He wanted Xu Yuanze to publicly take responsibility for this matter and then resign. Resigning was only one of the reasons. The main problem was that once he took responsibility, it meant that he had to be punished. At that time, it would be troublesome. As the mayor of Jingju, her eldest uncle was under a lot of pressure. If there were any major incidents that caused many casualties, someone would have to take responsibility to prevent the anger of the public. However, this method of taking responsibility was not blind. If her eldest uncle was responsible for the incidents and did not do it, he should be punished. However, the problem was that the contents of the letter were all accusations. If her eldest uncle was forced to step down from his position, no one would be able to hold on to his position. Furthermore, she was certain that no one was more suitable than her eldest uncle as the leader. He did not lack money, so he would not touch the bottom line. He was shrewd and would rarely be schemed against. Although he was ambitious, he always knew when to advance and retreat. He was also extremely righteous. Jin Yiran could not find any fault with her eldest uncle, so he wanted to force dirty water on him. It was extremely hateful. However, the other party also stated that if her eldest uncle was not willing, Xu Hong would completely disappear from this world. From the looks of it, the other party should have known that Xu Hong was her eldest uncle's son. Otherwise, he would not have gambled with him. Thinking about it carefully, Shunxi knew about Xu Hong's identity. Furthermore, Shunxi was in contact with Jin Yiran. It was not strange that Jin Yiran knew the truth from her. Jing Yunjiao read the letter for a long time. The more she read, the angrier she became. This Jin Yiran was really ruthless. He actually wanted her to choose one of the two, Xu Hong and Wang Ruxun. Jin Yiran gave her 3 days to consider. 3 days later, he wanted his eldest uncle to announce his decision. He also wanted her to board another cruise ship alone and head to the international waters. If first uncle was unwilling to take responsibility, then Xu Hong would die in 3 days. If first uncle agreed and she did not agree to go, then Wang Ruchun would not be able to come back alive. Even if Xu Hong was alive, he would definitely not be a normal person. Jin Yiran also knew that Wang Ruxun was not important to her, so he added Xu Hong as a bargaining chip. I agree to resign publicly as long as Hong comes back. However, Zhao, once you reach the sea, you will be surrounded by darkness. Even if you grow a pair of wings, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape. So, you should stay at home for the next few days. I think Li Xiaoyun can understand why you don't agree to save Wang Ruxun. As for Hong as long as she's alive, nothing else matters, Xu Yuantarek said. How can first uncle be sure that he won't go back on his words after you resign? Jing Yunjiao retorted, we're in his hands. Whatever he wants us to do, it's up to him to decide. Even if we made an agreement beforehand, it doesn't count. Chapter 1404. After hearing Jing Yunjiao's words, Xu Yuantarek rubbed his forehead. I don't think Jin Yiran is going to stay in the country any longer. Due to his frequent actions recently, the government has been suppressing him severely. His nests have been purged several times. Furthermore, he kills people every few days. Although we haven't found any evidence, it's true that he was the one who gave the orders. Therefore, the forces around him are divided. Xu Yuanze analyzed. How could he not be on guard against someone like Jin Yiran? He sent a lot of people to monitor him, even on the day Shu Hong went missing. His confidants were all under Jin Iran's control. He really didn't know how Jin Iran succeeded. Originally, according to his calculations, Jin Iran would definitely become a general without an army in less than 3 months. Unfortunately, Shu Yuan's aside and said, "Speaking of which, it's strange. Your cousin's skills are not bad, and he has some pills you gave him. In addition, he's also equipped with a gun. Under normal circumstances, it's impossible for him to be taken away." Jing Yunjiao treated her Biaoji wholeheartedly. She knew that he was interested in Chinese martial arts, so she taught him some traditional martial arts. Because he had a solid foundation, he learned it very well. Normally, it wouldn't be a problem for him to deal with a few martial arts practitioners. But this time, he actually fell silently. "First uncle, there's a doctor by Jin Iran's side. If I'm not mistaken, she should be Ruan Xiaoxia, who grew up in the Li family. Ruan Xiaoxia's godson is a serial killer. Cousin brother was the one who arrested Jin Iran. Cousin brother was even praised for his achievements. It's possible that Jin Iran targeted cousin brother because of his personal grudge. After all, cousin brother is much easier to deal with." Jing Yunjiao glanced at her first uncle and continued, "When you mentioned Biaoji's skills, it reminded me of something. Ruan Xiaoxia's godson's martial arts are especially good. Could it be that Ruan Xiaoxia taught him? We didn't connect Ruan Xiaoxia and Jin Iran before. If we calculate according to this, everything makes sense. Although Ruan Xiaoxia hated her father, she also loved him very much. However, she hated him thoroughly. If she died, her father would be in great pain. It could be considered as revenge." The people around Jin Iran were all being monitored by his eldest uncle, but Ruan Xiaoxia was not. Back then, the serial killer's kung fu was better than Jin Iran's cousin, so Ruan Xiaoxia was definitely not weak. It was reasonable that she could catch him. Jin Iran, Ruan Xiaoxia, and Yi Chu, these 3 people are on the same side. Jing Yunjiao's frown gradually loosened as she quickly added, "Jin Iran used our weakness, but it's not like we can't use theirs as well. As far as I know, Ruan Xiaoxia and Jin Iran are both alone. It's not an exaggeration to say that they are impregnable," Shu Yuancheng said. "If they're really Ruan Xiaoxia, they wouldn't kill me and uncle's cousin. Her mother's is families too. Her SS mothers, but I'm her to say, TSS to ashes. There should be some, right? Since his mother was alive, there should be traces left behind. We don't have to control everything. We just need to find out more about it. If we have no other choice, we can use it as a means. As for Ruan Xiaoxia, she kidnapped cousin because of that serial killer's son. Moreover, Ruan Xiaoxia was raised by Li Wenbo's family. According to my father, she doesn't know anything about her identity. Since Jin Iran was willing to do anything, she can't just focus on righteousness when dealing with people like him." Chapter 1405. If Jin Iran didn't capture Shu Hong and Wang Ruxun, she wouldn't have thought of using this method. Shu Yuantarek and Shu Wancheng looked at each other and smiled bitterly. "We were worried that you wouldn't like this method, so we didn't mention it. Since you've said so, we won't hide it from you. Jin Iran isn't alone. After his mother died, he was sent to live with his relatives for 3 years. Although he didn't have a good life, he had a cousin who took good care of him. However, after Jin Iran's power expanded, he wasn't polite to his cousin. His aunt and uncle who raised him had a miserable life. However, despite Jin Iran's bad attitude, his cousin lived a good life. She had a stable job and didn't suffer any revenge." These words were also reminding Jing Yunjiao that although Jin Iran didn't seem to have any relationship with his cousin, he was actually protecting her. "There's one more thing. I've checked on his cousin. All these years, this woman has been going to the grave for him. In addition, this woman's job is very ordinary, but she's never short of money. The most important thing is that most people who offend her don't have a good ending. If it wasn't for Jin Iran's help, she wouldn't have been able to do it." The 2 brothers did not go into detail, but if they were to use this cousin to threaten Jin Iran, they would not have any qualms about it. On one hand, they would be able to get rid of her. On the other hand, that girl had been spoiled by Jin Iran to the point that she was extremely scheming. When they were investigating her, the moment they saw her photo, they thought that she was shy and bashful. However, after looking into the details, they realized that she was simply a ferocious tiger. When Jing Yunjiao heard Xu Wencheng's words, he knew that there was something wrong with the girl. However, he didn't think too much about it. He was just using her to negotiate with Jin Yiran. He didn't really want to do anything to her. Have you guys already subdued him? Jing Yunjiao asked. The two brothers nodded. I'll announce my resignation 3 days later. If Jin Yiran doesn't let Xu Hong off, I'll bury his mother's grave and his cousin's grave, Xu Yuantarek said coldly. When it came to his son, it wasn't the time for him to be soft-hearted. Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Having an extra layer of protection is a good thing, but I'll have to trouble uncle to investigate Wan Xiaoxia. Regarding her, I feel that father should know a little more. Maybe he'll be able to find some clues, Jing Yunjiao suggested. I can handle it. But Zhao, from your attitude, it seems like you really want to go. Because of that Wang Rushun? When Wang Rushun was mentioned, the two brothers felt very uncomfortable. They Wang's mothers Iz's and Zesty SSSS and Zesty T. Even if I go to the international waters, I don't think anything will happen to me. Besides, I'm not doing it for Wang Rushun. I'm doing it for my cousin and Xiaoyun. Jing Yunjiao paused for a while before he continued, even if you can save his life, it's too cruel for him to become a cripple. All these years, the Xu family has let my cousin and aunt down. Now that I've finally found him, I can't let him be implicated. As for Wang Rushun, Grandpa Li has already decided how to deal with her. Before that, she's still Li Xiaoyun's mother. I don't want Li Xiaoyun and I to be labeled as unfilial. Chapter 1406. Jing Yunjiao said very seriously, which made the two people in front of her look a little dignified. Xiao Zhao, it's true that the Xu family let Xu Hong down, but they also let you down. If we found you earlier, you wouldn't have suffered so much before. Xu Wencheng immediately said. They couldn't give up Jing Yunjiao to save Xu Hong. Second uncle, now it's not just Xu Hong's life that's at stake. Think about it, if something happens to him, how can aunt live in the future? There's also the old man, he finally got a grandson that he can take a liking to. If he were to become a cripple, would he be able to bear it? Jing Yunjiao asked. We can let you do whatever you want with other things, but not this time. If you go to Jin Yiran's cruise ship, his people will be everywhere. Even if you have wings, you can't escape. You know in your heart which one is more important to the old man, Xu Hong or you. And don't forget, you are now the only heir of the Jing family. You should put yourself first. Xu Wencheng said firmly. Jing Yunjiao had already weighed the pros and cons in her heart. If she was an ordinary person, considering the inheritance of the Jing family, she would choose to be selfish for once. She would never take the risk. But she had the space left by her ancestors, so it was absolutely no problem for her to save her life. Therefore, she wanted to try. But she couldn't tell her two uncles about this trump card. At this time, it was a matter of principle. Xu Wencheng didn't have his usual sloppy appearance. His serious appearance made people a little nervous. Xu Yuantarek was the same. Jing Yunjiao also understood. Both of them felt that they had already lost money to her mother, so they couldn't owe her anymore. Let me go. I can guarantee that I will come back unscathed. You all know that I have martial arts to protect myself. I also know how to use a spear and some pharmacology. If I am really besieged, a few poisons will be enough. Besides, have you all forgotten about Li Xiaoyun? The number of dangerous places he's been to these past few years is too many to count. With him helping me from behind, there'll definitely be no problems, Jing Yunjiao sighed and continued. Li Xiaoyun and his brothers were said to be omnipotent. Protecting her was a piece of cake. However, even if she said so, the two people in front of her still looked indifferent. I can obviously save my cousin, but if I harm him because I can't go, then I won't be at ease for the rest of my life. Jing Yunjiao muttered to himself. Both of them knew her temperament. Once she had decided on something, she would never change her mind. Especially when it involved the safety of his loved ones, There was no room for discussion. Think about it carefully. There are still 3 days. Shu Yuantarek glanced at her and said, "We will also talk to Li Xiaoyun and see how confident he is." Only then did Jing Yunjiao nod her head. Because they were worried that Jing Yunjiao would act recklessly, the two of them directly let her live in the Shu family. Jing Yunjiao had no choice but to agree. Li Xiaoyun had always been with her, so without the two uncles' invitation, he also came over. The 3 men chatted for a long time in the study. Jing Yunjiao didn't know what they talked about, but after they came out, the 2 uncles also agreed. "What did you say to them?" Jing Yunjiao was a little surprised and asked Li Xiaoyun. "I just said that I will accompany you." Li Xiaoyun smiled. Jing Yunjiao was stunned for a moment and didn't quite understand. The next moment, Li Xiaoyun continued, "Since you said that Ruan Xiaoxia and Jin Yiran are together, then if it's really her, she would definitely want your father to appear as well. I'll tell your 2 uncles that I'll pretend to be Jing Tianyi." Chapter 1407. Jing Tianyi didn't know martial arts and only knew medical skills. He wasn't a threat to Jin Yiran and the others at all. Capturing one more person was a good thing for Ruan Xiaoxia and Jin Yiran, so they couldn't refuse. "Even if you're with them, uncle, and the others shouldn't be so straightforward. I know a lot of pirates." Li Xiaoyun directly said, "The other party's location isn't accurate, so it's not good for me to take action. When we arrive, the location will be immediately sent out. It'll be foolproof." Jing Yunjiao suddenly felt a little embarrassed. "How do you know them?" "I've done missions to fight pirates, so your husband has some prestige at sea." Li Xiaoyun pinched Jing Yunjiao's face and said narcissistically. Jing Yunjiao looked at him speechlessly, but at the same time, she felt some admiration. She heard from the old man that before he met her, Li Xiaoyun would go to Huaning County to sweep the tombs for a short time every year. Usually, he would do missions everywhere. Even if he didn't have any missions and was free, he would go out by himself and deal with the things he didn't like. His life was very exciting and busy. But at this time, after hearing what he said, she felt a lot more at ease. After all, she had never been to the sea, and her only confidence was her space. But now, with Li Xiaoyun, she felt more at ease. Soon, 3 days passed. Shu Yuantarek did what he said. He took responsibility for those documents and resigned, causing an uproar. Those who didn't understand the situation scolded Shu Yuanzi for being a corrupt official, but there were also some people who knew the rules of the officialdom and knew that those accidents had nothing to do with Shu Yuanzi. They only felt that he was either under pressure or under great threat. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to do such a stupid thing. But in any case, the reaction of the citizens was not small, and the forces behind Shu Yuantarek were even more shocked. But the matter was a foregone conclusion, and everyone was busy thinking about how to deal with it. At this time, Jing Yunjiao and Li Xiaoyun arrived at the agreed place, which was Jin Yiran's bar. At this time, Li Xiaoyun had disguised himself as Jing Tianyi and was sitting in a wheelchair. Although the mask was not as good as the real person, it was not a problem as long as one did not look carefully. Moreover, her father had not seen the sun for many years and did not like to look up at people. Usually, he would subconsciously lower his head, so it was easier for him to disguise himself now. As soon as the 2 of them appeared, a woman walked out from the darkness. When Jing Yunjiao saw that person, his gaze turned cold. "Ah, Jing Yunjiao, you really came. You really aren't afraid of death. It seems like those 2 uncles of yours don't dote on you that much. For the sake of the only male descendant in the family, didn't they still throw you away so easily?" Yi Chu coldly said. There were a few burly men standing behind her. They were all dressed in black and looked a little scary. Yi Chu's unrestrained manner was like a completely different person compared to before. Jing Yunjiao felt a sense of familiarity from her cold smile. Her memory slowly recovered and overlapped with a figure. In her previous life, in prison, Qiao Hongye walked in front of her like this. That arrogant and cold smile made people's hair stand on end. "Could it be, you, are Qiao Hongye?" Jing Yunjiao asked. Qiao Hongye, Yi Chu. Even their names were similar. In addition, her height and figure were similar to her previous life. After all, when Xiao Hongye left in this life, she was still young and her height was not fixed. Chapter 1408. When Yi Chu heard Jing Yunjiao call out his name, he suddenly laughed. His pair of eyes seemed to be burning with flames, revealing a hint of hatred. "You've finally figured out who I am." Xiao Hongye smiled and said fiercely, "Because of you, our family was like a rat crossing the street. I was expelled from school and forced into a corner by my father. If I wasn't smart enough to leave that damned place in time, I'm afraid I would have been tortured beyond recognition." Her father was a mercenary. If she didn't escape, then her fate would have been the same as Jing Yunjiao. She would have washed and cooked every day, served him and her brother every day. Without her beautiful face and temperament, she would have been reduced to an ugly and stupid woman. In the end, she would have been married off to a useless man by her father, wasting her life away. "You've been living a glorious life these past few years. You entered a university as the top scholar, found your family, and your career became more and more prosperous. Even your love life is so perfect. But do you know how I've been living these past few years?" Xiao Hongye stared at Jing Yunjiao. The corner of her mouth hooked up and she smiled cruelly. "When I just came out, I was cheated. I didn't have a single cent left. I had to fight with stray dogs for food, fight with beggars under the bridge for blankets. When I finally found a job, I was chased out again and again because of my age. For someone like Jing Yunjiao, she would never experience the feeling of being reduced to a beggar, or even living together with a group of filthy people, where men and women couldn't be distinguished. If she didn't have a pretty face, she wouldn't have lived to this day." "Then you deserve it." Jing Yunjiao coldly spat out a few words. "Then what about you? Don't you deserve it now? You should know what happens when you get on a cruise ship in international waters." Xiao Hongye immediately retorted. At this moment, Jing Yunjiao only felt that Xiao Hongye was extremely sad. When she escaped in the middle of the night, Xiao Weimin couldn't catch up and broke her legs. At that time, although she still hated Xiao Hongye, it wasn't very strong. She even thought that as long as they didn't meet again in this life, she wouldn't hold on to the past. As time passed, Xiao Hongye slowly faded from her memory. She never thought that she would appear again in this way. And now, she completely understood why Yi Chu kept throwing flirtatious glances at her man. Xiao Hongye always liked to fight for and snatch her things, not to mention a high-quality man like Li Xiaoyun. But unfortunately, her man's taste wasn't that bad. "My fate isn't up to you, but I can imagine your fate," Jing Yunjiao said coldly. This time, she wouldn't let Xiao Hongye. International waters. Wasn't that place was not bad. At least she wouldn't have a chance to escape. "You're only to be stubborn." Xiao Hongye rolled her eyes, then glanced at Jing Tianyi. "You want to bring this trash along with you? You're really stupid. But I'll fulfill your wish." Previously, when they were capturing Wang Ruchun and Xu Hong, they had already thought of capturing Jing Tianyi as well. However, Jing Yunjiao's protection of Jing Tianyi was so tight that they couldn't even get close to him. Furthermore, Jing Tianyi didn't like to go out, so they couldn't even find a chance to capture him. Now that they had sent him over, if Auntie Xia knew, she would definitely be very happy. Xiao Hongye was like a rooster that had won a fight. She couldn't wait to raise her tail to the sky. However, she knew that Jing Yunjiao knew martial arts, so she restrained herself. She only invited him to the car and drove towards the ferry. It wasn't safe to make a move on Jing Yunjiao on land. Xiao Hongye was very clear about this. Chapter 1409. At this moment, even though Xiao Hongye couldn't wait to kill Jing Yunjiao immediately, she was also very clear about Jing Yunjiao's weight. She knew that the chances of success right now weren't high, so she obediently endured it. Jing Yunjiao and the disguised Li Xiaoyun boarded the cruise ship together and slowly approached the original route. The cruise ship wasn't big, and there was no one else inside except for Jiniran's subordinates. It would take quite some time to reach the international waters, but during this process, Xiao Hongye clearly didn't have any intention of taking care of Jing Yunjiao. She didn't even prepare any food. However, for Jing Yunjiao and Li Xiaoyun, they weren't hungry at all. Xiao Hongye couldn't control her movements at all, so Jing Yunjiao could also catch some seafood to fill his stomach. The only pity was that she couldn't use the things in her space. After all, Xiao Hongye had already checked before coming here. Both parties had already agreed that she wasn't allowed to bring any weapons, so it was obvious what she had on her. Xiao Hongye threw away all the bottles and jars in her bag. If she needed medicine later, she would have to think of other ways. Fortunately, she and Li Xiaoyun had taken many kinds of antidotes in advance, so it was guaranteed that Wan Xiaoxia's medicine wouldn't hurt them. Of course, while Jing Yunjiao was catching seafood, she was also doing something else without leaving a trace. There were countless things in the world that could be used to make medicine. There were things that flew in the sky and things that swam in the sea. Medicine and poison were inseparable. Jing Yunjiao could also obtain a lot of benefits from these things. It could be considered as collecting resources in advance. The waves came one after another, and the air was filled with a thick salty smell. It was Jing Yunjiao's first time going out to sea, but he didn't feel any discomfort. On the other hand, Xiao Hongye's face was pale. She was actually suffering from seasickness. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but find it funny. After all, Xiao Hongye was so aggressive just a second ago, and now she was so weak. It was really an eye-opener for her. Jing Yunjiao, you're a doctor, right? Xiao Hongye looked at Jing Yunjiao after vomiting. That's right. As long as you dare to let me treat you, I'll be more than happy to. Jing Yunjiao sneered. Do you think I'm stupid? I'm just asking. Xiao Hongye turned her head and said disdainfully. The feeling of seasickness was too unbearable. At first, she did have the intention of letting Jing Yunjiao prescribe medicine. But after thinking about it, even if her body temporarily didn't have any problems after taking her medicine, it didn't mean that Jing Yunjiao wouldn't do anything to her. It wasn't easy for her to survive until now. If she was harmed by Jing now, then it would be too much of a loss. Jing Yunjiao sneered, you've gotten a lot older, but your brain is getting more and more stupid. I really don't know if you dug out your brain while you were changing your face, S. I know you're eloquent, but don't be happy for too long. Your father is still in my hands. Do you believe that I'll immediately have someone throw him overboard? Xiao Hongye immediately said angrily. If you want to throw him away, then throw him away. But if something happens to him, everyone on this boat can forget about returning alive. At worst, we'll just break up. With you guys buried with us, my Biaoji and Wang Ruchun won't be wronged. Jing Yunjiao didn't show any signs of fear. If he admitted defeat because of Xiao Hongye's words, then he would really be suppressed by her. Dealing with people like Xiao Hongye was no different from gambling. He couldn't show the slightest bit of being controlled in front of the other party. Otherwise, Xiao Hongye would really get what she wanted. Chapter 14:10. Xiao Hongye also knew what she had to do. Although Jing Yunjiao seemed to be in her hands, Jing Yunjiao knew martial arts. Now that Wan Xiaoxia and Jin Yiran were not around, she could not act recklessly. Otherwise, the possibility of Jing Yunjiao controlling her was very high. Moreover, if she really killed Jing Yunjiao, Jin Yiran would definitely not let her off. That man yearned for Jing Yunjiao day and night. Xiao Hongye suddenly became silent. Jing Yunjiao sat at the side with a trace of a smile on his face. Unbeknownst to these people, he took out silver needles dipped in poison from his space. Taking advantage of the fact that the people around were not paying attention, he quickly flicked them out. These silver needles were extremely thin. Even if they were to pierce into a person's body, they would only feel a slight numbness. It would not cause people to think too much. Although he could not take out other eye-catching things from his space, he could take out the poisoned silver needles. He could even throw out as many as he wanted. There was still a lot of time left. Even if he wanted to stab everyone, it was more than enough. Of course, since he already had this thought, Jing Yunjiao did not hold back. He got up and walked around. Almost everyone he saw had been poisoned. This was a slow-acting poison. The toxicity was not very strong. They would slowly feel uncomfortable. After a day, they would feel weak all over. However, on the surface, they would not be able to see anything. When it was time to take action, they would have almost no lethality. Even if they had guns on them, they would not be able to aim and shoot. Everyone else had been secretly tormented by Jing Yunjiao. Naturally, Qiao Hongye would not be let off. Although Qiao Hongye spent most of her time sleeping in her room, as the person in charge of this cruise ship, there were many places where she needed to appear. After Jing Yunjiao found an opportunity, he directly flicked a silver needle into her lower back. Hiss. The moment the silver needle came into contact, Qiao Hongye subconsciously touched it. She frowned. "Miss Yi, what happened to you?" The person beside her quickly asked. "It's nothing. Maybe I was bitten by a bug. It's nothing serious." Qiao Hongye did not care. After all, the pain was very light. Moreover, it only lasted for a moment. It was like being bitten by a mosquito. Jing Yunjiao chuckled when he heard her words. The poison used to deal with Qiao Hongye was naturally different from other poisons. Wasn't she seasick? Then he would make her completely dizzy. The symptoms of poisoning were similar to seasickness. Even if he asked the doctor on the ship to examine her personally, he wouldn't be able to find anything. Once Jing Yunjiao took action, the effect was naturally extraordinary. Not long after, Qiao Hongye once again vomited until she was hovering between life and death. She could only lie on the bed and talk nonsense. She didn't know why, but she always felt that Jing Yunjiao seemed to be her nemesis. Before she met Jing Yunjiao, everything was going smoothly for her. But now, the closer she was to him, the more uncomfortable she felt. Qiao Hongye groaned for a long time. By the time Jin Iran's cruise ship docked, Qiao Hongye's face was already pale beyond recognition. The two cruises met, and Jing Yunjiao and Li Xiaoyun were also brought onto the big ship. "Aunt Xia, quickly take a look at me. I'm very seasick. It's very uncomfortable." Upon seeing Wan Xiaoxia, Qiao Hongye immediately said. Jing Yunjiao raised her head and glanced at the woman, only to see that she was wearing a red fur coat, as if she was celebrating something. At the same time, Wan Xiaoxia also looked over, as if she was suspecting that Jing Yunjiao had secretly attacked her. Thus, Jing Yunjiao quickly grabbed Qiao Hongye's wrist and carefully examined it. Chapter 14:11. Wan Xiaoxia's medical skills were very good, and Jing Yunjiao wouldn't be so stupid as to show it in front of her. She had already guessed that Wan Xiaoxia would check on Qiao Hongye just in case, so she didn't poison Qiao Hongye too much. Along the way, the poison had almost subsided, so the possibility of finding out was not high. Sure enough, Wan Xiaoxia's expression became better when she didn't find anything wrong with Qiao Hongye's body. She smiled at Qiao Hongye and said, "It's okay, there's medicine on the ship. I'll get someone to boil a bowl for you later. You'll be fine after drinking it." "Thank you, Aunt Xia." In front of Wan Xiaoxia, Qiao Hongye was as obedient as a cat. Not only her, even the man named Jin Iran was the same. His attitude was polite and respectful. It wasn't the first time Jing Yunjiao saw Jin Iran, but the number of times they met was very few. It had been a long time since they last met, and she almost forgot what he looked like. Jin Iran was very handsome, but he had a gloomy and evil aura. His whole body exuded a creepy aura, and his eyes were sharp. Although he was good-looking, in Jing Yunjiao's eyes, he was a little worse than Li Xiaoyun. Li Xiaoyun was a soldier, and under the same expression, he gave off a solemn feeling, which made people subconsciously restrain themselves. Jin Iran, on the other hand, had a little bit of a vile character. No matter how good-looking he was, it was tainted by this aura, making him look strange and evil. "Miss Jing is indeed a person with backbone. You're actually willing to take the risk for your cousin. I really admire you." Jin Iran smiled. As he spoke, he waved his hand and invited Jing Yunjiao into the cabin like a gentleman. Jing Yunjiao glanced at him, then pushed Jing Tianyi in the wheelchair and said, "Mr. Jin seems to have been waiting for this day for a long time, right?" What entered her eyes was a group of men dressed in black. Each of them had a gun in their hands, and they were on guard at any time. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult to escape. It has indeed been a long time, but I'm very satisfied with today's results. Jin Iran's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. He looked at her with a look of amazement and sizing her up, making Jing Yunjiao feel that this person was a little wretched. So what if he was rich and powerful? His mind was dirty, and his appearance was a reflection of his heart. She couldn't like this kind of temperament no matter what. Mr. Jin, now that I'm here, shouldn't you let me meet Xu Hong and Wang Ruxun? Jing Yunjiao asked. Of course, Jin Yiran said. Ruan Xiaoxia didn't say anything, but she kept staring at Jing Yunjiao. From her eyes, Jing Yunjiao didn't find anything fishy. It was obvious that even she couldn't tell that the Jing Tianyi in front of her was fake. Jing Yunjiao found it a little ridiculous. Chapter 14:12. As soon as the door opened, Jing Yunjiao's heart burned with anger. She saw that Xu Hong was hung up in the air, and Wang Ruchun was similarly tied up. Her mouth was even sealed with tape. Both of them had quite a few injuries on their bodies. It seemed like they had been taught a lesson. Xu Hong's breathing was weak, but both of them were still conscious. When they saw Jing Yunjiao, they reacted violently. Jin Yiran asked his men to remove the tape from their mouths. Yunjiao, why are you here? Did this bastard threaten you? Xu Hong's eyes were red with anger. He knew what Jing Yunjiao meant to the Xu family. In terms of existence, Jing Yunjiao was more qualified to live than him. Hence, he never thought that Jing Yunjiao would appear here. After all, she was so smart. The fact that she was by Jin Yiran's side meant that Jin Yiran was using her as a threat. When he thought about how he had implicated the Xu family, Xu Hong was filled with disgust. Xu Yuantarek treated him well and treated him like his own son. Now, he had implicated Xu Yuantarek's beloved niece. At this moment, Xu Hong was filled with guilt. On the other hand, Wang Ruchun had a completely different reaction. Just as she was able to open her mouth, she immediately started crying. Let me go. I'm begging you to let me go. Jing Yunjiao, you're so cruel. I'm Xiaoyun's mother, how could you treat me like this? Jing Yunjiao rolled his eyes. He had never seen such a stupid person. She had been captured for so long and she still didn't know why she was captured. Was that huge head just an ornament? TSK, 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 look at how his mother treated you. Do you still think you can marry him? Miss Jing, as long as you're willing to be with me, I promise to give you the best in the world. I can even help you vent your anger by throwing this woman into the sea to feed the sharks. What do you think? Jin Yiran said with a smile. Jing Yunjiao felt disgusted. Who do you think you are? You want me to be with you? I've never been interested in trash. You'll know in the future whether I'm trash or not. Jin Yiran sneered, then glanced at Xu Hong and said, Your uncle seems like a righteous man, but he's just an ordinary man. He slept with 2 women, and it wasn't enough for him to marry one. Now, he wants to marry a second woman. He lied to his own son and didn't even dare to admit it. Isn't it reasonable for me to ask him to step down? Hearing this, Xu Hong was stunned. Jin Yiran, you don't have to sow discord between us. That's right, my eldest uncle did hide the truth, but he was only worried that his wife and son would leave. Back then, Shun Shi was full of evil tricks and secretly replaced Shen Tong as Mrs. Xu. Even my eldest uncle didn't know about it. Now, he's trying to set things right. Most importantly, he's sincere towards Shen Tong. Why would he need an outsider like you to do something unnecessary? Also, back then, Shun Shi harmed Shen Tong so many times in the dark. Wasn't it all because of your help that she was able to do it silently? Jing Yunjiao looked like she was retorting, but in reality, she was also explaining to Xu Hong. Xu Hong was a very reasonable person. Even if he felt uncomfortable, he could understand if he thought about it carefully. After all, although his eldest uncle and Shen Tong had kept a low profile when they got married, he had always been very gentle and devoted to Shen Tong. He definitely wasn't pretending. A person's sincerity could be seen from their daily life. How could it be destroyed by a few words from an outsider? At this moment, Xu Hong's eyes darkened and his face was blank. He seemed to be in a dilemma. He was shocked by the conversation between the two and didn't know how to react. Chapter 14:13. Shu Hong had always respected Shu Yuantarek and felt that it was a pity that he was not a biological son of the Shu family. However, he had long gotten used to his current identity and lifestyle. Now that Jing Yunjiao had suddenly told him that he was indeed Shu Yuantarek's biological son, it would be strange if he could accept it. When he was young, he did have some expectations and longed for his biological father. He had also learned from his mother that his parents were together by accident and that his father, whose identity was unknown, did not even know of his existence. Even though he was unwilling to accept this situation, he slowly stopped thinking about it when he thought about the hardships his mother had gone through over the years. However, the words biological father had always been in his heart. After all, there was no one in this world who did not want to know who their parents were. Even if their parents were not successful people, even if they had no power or influence, they were still related by blood. Occasionally, he would still have some wild thoughts in his heart. Is it true? Yun Jiao, is what you said true? Uncle Shu, is my biological father? Shu Hong asked with some difficulty. His lips were pale and chapped, probably due to the lack of food and water. Jing Yunjiao was in a difficult position. If he had known that Shu Hong would find out the truth under such circumstances, he would have made things clear earlier. That way, he would have been able to tell him the details. That's right. You are my biological cousin. However, we didn't mean to hide it from you. We were mainly afraid that you and Aunt would suspect Uncle's intentions after knowing the truth, Jing Yunjiao said helplessly. At this moment, Jin Yiran sneered. Shu Yuantarek has a good plan. He has always been a scheming person. Back then, when Shu Yuantarek thought that Shu Yu was his biological son, how did he treat him? Just because his son was useless, he sent him to a quiet place to stay. He had to face 4 walls for the rest of his life and his legs were crippled. His life was not easy. Miss Jing, if your cousin wasn't somewhat capable and your aunt wasn't an extremely beautiful woman, do you think your uncle would have brought them back? Not to mention the mother and son, even you, are the same. Jin Yiran looked at Jing Yunjiao and laughed arrogantly. Miss Jing brought Yunling medicine with her when she was reunited with her family, right? Mayor Shu knows that you are the chairman of Yunling medicine. That's why he's so polite to you. Otherwise, do you think an orphan like you can get his love? Jing Yunjiao was stunned, not because of her uncle, but because of Jin Yiran's understanding of her. He even knew about the situation when she was reunited with her relatives. It seemed like he had been lurking behind the scenes for quite some time. However, when he thought about it, Shunxi was under his control in the past, and it was enough for him to know everything about her. I know better than you what kind of person my uncle is. Jin Yiran, the reason why you said that is because your father lost to my uncle. And strictly speaking, your father really isn't a good person. He deserved to die in prison. Jing Yunjiao recalled what her uncle had said before and continued, back then, it was your father who drugged my uncle and Shentong in order to let the media catch a stain on my uncle's reputation. In the end, he didn't expect Shunxi to interfere, and in the end, he failed on the verge of success. It was because of your father's mischief that the Shu family led a wolf into their house for so many years. It also caused Shentong to suffer the grievances of having a child out of wedlock. Isn't it natural for him to pay the price for this? Don't you think it's ridiculous for you to seek justice for him? Chapter 14:14. Although Jin Yiran looked normal on the surface, his heart was twisted. He had lived a good life these years and his status was feared by many. To be able to reach such a high position, he should be aware of the dangers in the political world. You have to fight and the losers are always in the wrong. Moreover, his father was courting death and he could not blame anyone else. You have a sharp tongue. Jin Yiran smiled and reached his hand towards her face as if he was going to pinch her chin. However, Jing Yunjiao wasn't your typical weak girl. She didn't give him any face and directly turned her head away. Jin Yiran's hand froze in midair. His expression was extremely ugly, but after a few seconds, he put it down. While he was at it, he dusted off his clothes and casually said, "My father lost, so he deserved to die. However, I don't necessarily lose." Jing Yunjiao pursed her lips slightly. This person was so competitive that he did not care about right or wrong at all. Now that I'm here, shouldn't you keep your promise and release Shu Hong and Wang Ruxun? Jing Yunjiao asked. What if I don't? Jin Yiran smirked sinisterly. Jing Yunjiao sneered and said, Mr. Jin, do you think I'll come here unprepared? If Shu Hong doesn't return in one piece, I can guarantee that your cousin and your mother's grave will disappear from this world. I've always been a principled person. However, if the other party broke the rules of the game first, I don't mind crossing the line. As expected, Jin Yiran's face changed slightly after Jing Yunjiao finished speaking. However, after a while, he laughed maniacally and said, Not bad. I like you more and more. Don't worry, I can let him board another cruise ship and leave. However, Miss Jing, don't you think it's a pity? If you take the opportunity to kill Wang Ruxun, only you and I will know. This woman is so detestable. It's not a good thing for you to live. Initially, he only wanted to make Jing Yunjiao appear. As for Shu Hong, it did not matter if he killed him or not. He also knew what kind of people Shu Yuantarek and Jing Yunjiao were, so he was not afraid to leave with his cousin. Just as she said, as long as he followed the rules of the game, there would not be any problems. As a person who wanted to make a living, he still had to have some morals. Moreover, Shu Hong was not his target at all, so it did not matter. At this moment, only Jing Yunjiao and Jin Yiran were present. Li Xiaoyun had already been arranged to another room. Qiao Hongye was guarding the door and did not enter. As for Wan Xiaoxia, Jing Yunjiao guessed that the woman must have gone to find Li Xiaoyun, who was disguised as Jing Tianyi. Just like what Jin Yiran had said, it was indeed a good time to kill Wang Ruxun. However, she was not a bloodthirsty killer. No matter how incompetent Wang Ruxun was, she was still a member of the Li family and it was not her place to punish her. Thank you for your good intentions, but it's a pity that I'm not you. I don't have the hobby of killing people for no reason. Jing Yunjiao sneered. I didn't expect you to make such a big sacrifice for Li Xiaoyun. Jin Yiran smacked his lips and said, We only said that we would let Shu Hong go back alive, but we did not say buy one get one free. This Wang Ruxun, you can't take her away. Jing Yunjiao frowned. Jin Yiran, what are you trying to do? Don't you know what I'm trying to do? Jin Yiran smiled, his eyes gloomy and deep. My uncle has already done as you said. Jing Yunjiao said. That's right, but we still have to wait. Let's see if your uncle's life is long enough. Jin Yiran said. Chapter 14-15. Hearing Jin Yiran's words, Jing Yunjiao knew that he must have done something behind her back. After all, Jin Yiran had a grudge against her eldest uncle, but he didn't have a deep grudge against her. There was no reason for him to let her eldest uncle off and chase after her. Did you ask your men to take action when I arrived? Jing Yunjiao asked. You're quite smart. Jin Yiran glanced at her and smiled. You're right. From the moment you boarded the ship until now, there should be a lot of people who have been poisoned. Although they are all drug addicts, it's a matter of life and death. I asked my men to tell the public that you're the only person who can cure this drug. Guess what will happen? Jing Yunjiao frowned. She knew that Jin Yiran used to be in charge of the mafia and had done many illegal things. It was just that he wasn't caught. Now, as long as the drug was mixed with the drug addicts, it would be easy to get rid of them. She wasn't in the capital. Even if the poisoned people and the public searched 3 feet deep, they wouldn't be able to find her. When the time came, even if her eldest uncle explained that she couldn't show up, the public wouldn't believe him. They would only think that the Shu family was selfish and that she was selfish. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Your eldest uncle had to take the drug in order to appease the public. If he didn't do so, there would be more drugs. In order to appease the public, the higher-ups will definitely choose to sacrifice your eldest uncle, Shu Yuantarek. Jin Yiran said slowly. However, Jing Yunjiao heaved a sigh of relief when she heard the words large quantities of drugs. She had been gambling. Just in case, she had prepared a lot of things before she came. They were all targeted at poisons. She was also afraid that Jin Yiran and Wan Xiaoxia would cause too much trouble, so she had researched all the poisons that could be produced in large quantities. The antidote had long been prepared. However, those poisons had been modified. Although it could save Jin Iran's life, she had to wait until she returned to the capital. In any case, the danger was reduced by more than half. Even if her eldest uncle was forced to take the poison, the possibility of him dying was not high. Jin Iran and Ruan Xiaoxia had underestimated her ability. Is that so? Jing Yunjiao sneered and said, "Where did Ruan Xiaoxia find the Jing clan's secret scripture? Do you think I don't know about the medicine inside?" Hearing this, Jin Yiran's face stiffened. "You grew up in a small place, so you didn't have the opportunity to learn the methods of the Jing clan, right? How would he know about the things in the Jing clan's secret manual?" This woman was very smart. She must be lying to him. He had already planned everything. He would transfer Jing Yunjiao away, and Shu Yuantarek would be forced to take the drug and die. Even the other drug addicts would all die. When the time came, the Shu family and the Jing family would be cursed by the citizens. Jing Yunjiao would be the same. No matter what the reason was, if he didn't appear in time to treat him, he would be labeled as a vicious and incompetent person. He would be hated by everyone. He would let nature take its course and leave with Jing Yunjiao. "Mr. Jin, you don't seem to be a qualified hunter. If I don't know the Jing clan's medical skills, how can I be the successor of the Jing clan?" Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but laugh. "Let me guess, did you use all the manpower and money you left in the capital city to do this? That's ridiculous. It seems like you'll be a general without an army in the future." After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, she walked towards Shu Hong and untied the ropes on his body. She dared to say this because she knew that Jin Iran wouldn't dare to keep Shu Hong. Besides, he would definitely confirm with the people in the capital city. Not much time had passed, so he wouldn't be able to get a result in such a short time. Jin Iran's face darkened, but he still pretended to be calm and sent Shu Hong to another cruise ship. Chapter 14-16. Shu Hong grabbed Jing Yunjiao's arm and refused to let go. Jing Yunjiao knew that even though Shu Hong was suspicious of the Shu family's motives, he was still the same person as before and would not be so heartless as to let her face it alone. However, keeping him around would only distract her. Hence, when Shu Hong refused to get on the boat, Jing Yunjiao said, "Regardless of whether you believe me or not, there are some things that I have to make clear to you. I, eldest uncle, and everyone in the Shu family treat you and your mother sincerely. Although eldest uncle is good at scheming, he doesn't treat his family that way. When you go back, you can ask around about how he treated Shenxi back then. You'll know that he doesn't treat aunt like this because he wants to tie you down." Jing Yunjiao added, "Also, you can leave at ease. Aunt still doesn't know that you're in trouble. Don't forget how much she has sacrificed for you over the years. Now is not the time to be soft-hearted." With that, Jing Yunjiao forcibly broke free from Shu Hong's grip. There was a smile on his face and he was as confident as before. "Are you confident?" Shu Hong asked in a low voice. He knew that he was not as capable as Jing Yunjiao. He couldn't even deal with Ruan Xiaoxia, so staying here would not be of any help to Jing Yunjiao. However, when he thought of leaving her alone, guilt flooded his heart. "Yes." Jing Yunjiao nodded. Jin Iran sneered behind them. Since Jing Yunjiao was here, he had no intention of letting her go back. Even if she wanted to go back, she had to become his woman and stand by his side willingly. Shu Hong stared at Jing Yunjiao's eyes for a moment before he nodded. "Okay. Be careful." He had also heard the conversation between Jin Iran and Jing Yunjiao. At this moment, he was worried about Shu Yuantarek's health. Since he couldn't keep her alive, there was no point in hesitating. Jing Yunjiao smiled as she helped Shu Hong get on the boat and onto another cruise ship. Only the captain and a few crew members were left on the cruise ship. Not a single one of Jin Yiran's men could be seen. Only then did Jing Yunjiao feel at ease. Seeing her cousin's figure getting further and further away, Jing Yunjiao decided to just turn around without any reluctance. After all, she was not going to die, so there was no need to be pretentious. "You're really open-minded." Jin Iran stood beside her. "Of course. Now that he's gone, I have a better chance of dealing with you, right? Jing Yunjiao did not hold back. What about your father and Wang Ruxun? Jing Yunjiao, from the moment you boarded the cruise ship, you can only belong to me. The Shu family can only end up like this. There won't be any accidents. I don't believe a single word you said. Tonight, I'll wait for you in the room. Clean yourself up. Otherwise, your father won't just cripple your legs, Jiniran said coldly as he caressed her face. Jing Yunjiao felt disgusted. Jiniran had already left after saying those words. Jing Yunjiao clenched her fists as she looked at the vast sea. Xu Hong was gone, but that idiot Wang Ruxun was still around. She was a problem. She and Li Xiaoyun could definitely kill their way out and feed them to the fishes. But Wang Ruxun, Jing Yunjiao's eyes darkened. The cruise ship was only so big, and Jiniran did not control her movements. He only asked someone to follow her. At this time, Wang Ruxun was moved from the lowest room to the VIP room on the cruise ship. Jing Yunjiao walked in without hesitation. At this time, Wang Ruxun knew that Jing Yunjiao was here to save her, but she still looked at her coldly. Your cousin is gone. Jing Yunjiao, do you know how much I hate you? Why are you saving him and not me? Wang Ruxun said angrily. However, because she was still a little guilty, she did not speak loudly. She was just putting on airs because she was Xu Hong's mother-in-law. Chapter 14-17. Jing Yunjiao glanced at her and then at the other decorations in the room. He sneered, Madam Wang, please take a good look at your current situation. If it wasn't for me, you would still be tied up. What's your relationship with Jiniran? Do you think I'm stupid? I heard what Jiniran said. If it wasn't for you and the Xu family, I wouldn't have been kidnapped. Wang Ruchun felt wronged as she recalled this matter. Originally, she couldn't stand her son shooting at her. She didn't expect that in just a day, she would be transferred from the land to the sea. That Yi Chu was clearly a little white rabbit, but in the blink of an eye, he became a big bad wolf. When he tied her up, he even stretched out his hand and slapped her a few times. I really wonder if you're Xiaoyun's biological mother. Your IQ has always been off the charts. You're hopelessly stupid. Jing Yunjiao mocked. Although Wang Ruchun was indeed implicated, if it wasn't for this person being so stupid, she wouldn't have led a wolf into the house. Qiao Hongye only snuck into her side because she saw that she was easy to make use of. Unfortunately, she didn't discover the slightest clue. How can you talk to your elders like that? Wang Ruchun said angrily. Elder, are you worthy? Wang Ruchun, please be sensible and don't cause trouble for me. Otherwise, I'll immediately throw you into the sea to feed the sharks. Jing Yunjiao said coldly. You dare. Wang Ruchun immediately said. Jing Yunjiao smiled. You think I don't dare? Then why don't I let you have a taste? As soon as she finished speaking, Wang Ruchun's eyes widened. Jing Yunjiao immediately went forward and pulled Wang Ruchun up from the bed. The two men in black who were watching Jing Yunjiao saw this and quickly went forward. However, Jing Yunjiao only glanced at them and said, You want to care about this? I remember Jin Iran asked me if I should take this opportunity to kill Wang Ruchun, right? I wasn't willing before, but I regret it now. If you know what's good for you, then scram. Don't hinder me. The two men looked at each other and hesitated. One of them directly contacted Jin Iran and told him about this matter. At this moment, Jin Iran was enjoying himself with Qiao Hongye in his arms. When he heard this, he immediately said, Let her be. If a piece of trash dies, then so be it. It would be best if she died. If she killed her future mother-in-law with her own hands, how could Jing Yunjiao and Li Xiaoyun continue to be friends? With Jin Yiran's words, the two men in black immediately retreated to the side. Wang Ruchun didn't expect that Jing Yunjiao would really dare to make a move on her. She instantly panicked and hurriedly said, Jing Yunjiao, are you crazy? I am Xiaoyun's mother. How can you do this to me? Previously, even though Yi Chu had hit her, his movements were fast and accurate. Wang Ruchun didn't even have time to react. But now, it was different. Jing Yunjiao's strength was extremely strong. She pulled Wang Ruchun up by the arm, leaving her with no way to resist. She could only feel the flesh on her arm being pulled painfully. Wang Ruchun didn't want to leave the room. "Madam Wang, your son isn't here right now. Even if he was, he wouldn't be soft-hearted towards you. Don't forget, you were the one who pushed your own son out." Jing Yunjiao sneered. Seeing that she was being disobedient, he reached out and pulled her hair fiercely. While they were pulling, Jing Yunjiao took out the locator hidden in her palm and wrapped it around Wang Ruchun's hair. However, to prevent any accidents from happening, she stuffed all the locators she had on her into Wang Ruchun's body. This thing was waterproof. As long as the person didn't fall to the bottom of the sea where the water pressure was high, then it was practically indestructible. Chapter 14:18. All of this was done by Jing Yunjiao in secret. Wang Ruchun herself was not aware of this. At this moment, she felt that she had been greatly insulted. Tears flowed down her cheeks. She was extremely upset. What kind of sin did she commit to make her son fall in love with such a vicious woman? She thought that Yi Chu was already a bad person, but she didn't think that Jing Yunjiao was even worse. She was an elder, yet this Jing Yunjiao was pulling and dragging her, as if she wanted to eat her up. Could it be that she really did not care about her son's opinion? "That's right. It's that Jiniran." Jiniran asked Jing Yunjiao to follow him before. It must be that Jing Yunjiao was afraid of death, so he agreed to Jiniran's request. That's why he was not afraid of her at all. Wang Ruchun was angry, but at the same time, she was also afraid. If Jing Yunjiao had the identity of being her daughter-in-law, then she would still have some confidence and feel that Jing Yunjiao wouldn't dare to mess around. But now, Jing Yunjiao had someone to take over at any time, and it was even that vicious Jin Yiran. Under these circumstances, it was hard to guarantee that Jing Yunjiao wouldn't do anything. Wang Ruchun had never had her own opinions and was extremely timid. Seeing that Jing Yunjiao was about to drag her out of the house, she immediately cried and begged for mercy. "Jing Yunjiao, you can't do this to me. I beg you, it hurts. When your son shot himself, did you think that he was also in pain? I tolerated you before because I was giving you face. However, you did not know what was good for you and asked for trouble. You can't blame others." Jing Yunjiao said coldly. "I know that I have wronged you before. I won't dare to do it again. In the future, you can marry whoever you want. I will not say anything anymore." Wang Ruchun said again. She was originally a small figure. Her confidence came from her husband and father-in-law. Now that she no longer had the aura of an aristocratic family, she naturally revealed her true colors. Jing Yunjiao's gaze was still as cold as ever. She tugged on her clothes and practically dragged her out of the room. The two men in black behind her saw this and also widened their eyes in astonishment. They didn't think that Jing Yunjiao would be so violent towards someone who could be considered her elder. "Do you have a life vest? Can I trouble you to bring me one?" Jing Yunjiao said to the two people behind him the moment he stepped onto the bow. As long as Jing Yunjiao didn't do anything to harm Jiniran, the two of them would still have to listen to her. As such, Jing Yunjiao quickly got what she wanted. As soon as the buoyant life jacket was in his hands, Jing Yunjiao forcefully put it on Wang Ruchun without saying a word. His rough actions made the two people secretly click their tongues. "What do you want?" "Jing Yunjiao, people will die in the sea. What are you trying to do?"